And they taught me to disobey average. They taught me to, when your coach tells you to do 10 push-ups, that's cute, Ben, do more. And so I knew when the cadence was 10 push-ups, I would drop down and be like, I don't do silver, I do gold.
All right, welcome back to the Daily Mastermind. George Wright III with your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and education. And I got a treat for you guys today. If you're looking for clarity, focus, discipline, we got Ben Kjar in the house. How you doing, brother?
So good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. You know, we were able to feature you on the Franklin Planner podcast to their 500,000 names, and you are a hard guy in demand. You're going out of the country for a month, and I think you've got a message that can really help people to go to the next level. So just in case there's someone who has not heard of you, I want to kind of give a little bit of an introduction. So Ben Kjar is a friend. He's a business entrepreneur, just an absolute impact he's making in the industry. But he was born with Crouzon syndrome. That's how you pronounce it, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And medical challenges, bullying, adversity. We're going to be talking about resilience and overcoming things. But UVU's first NCAA Division I All-American wrestler, international level. You've competed, world class competition and champion. You've been in real estate, flipped 200 homes and had a portfolio. You're international speaker. You just released a film called Standout, the Ben Kjar Story. And most importantly, you're a family man. You got a wife and 3 kids, right? So pretty much living this life of success from what most people would think that people are trying to achieve. So, but it's come through a lot of obstacle, right? A lot of adversity. So for those that have not, and by the way, like I said, this is just a great pleasure to have you in the studio, and that we could even do that. Give us a little bit of the story, because I do feel like people that may know you or may not know you, maybe haven't seen the film yet, give us the story growing up and what you had to deal with, and just kind of give us a little bit of that backdrop. We'll touch base on that and then get into some really good strategy as well. You
know what? My parents, early on in my childhood, they were told that I would live a different life. And so they were wondering what that was. I'm one of 7 kids, and the doctors told me I wouldn't do contact sports. And they also told my parents to save money for the therapist and the psychologist that I would need for my emotional well-being. And I remember my parents coming to me and finding everything after a lot of just pillowcases just stained with tears. They told me later that they tried to do everything they could to give their boy confidence. Brother, more now than ever, I think the biggest flex of mankind is not riches, it isn't money, it's not the biggest house or the nicest car. I truly believe it's inner peace. And how do you find inner peace? Because that's what my parents wanted to give me. It's through genuine confidence. And how do you find that? Especially when you're dealing with all the stuff you had to deal with. Totally. I mean, bullying, not just from kids, but from adults, people. Like, I ended up wrestling, by the way. I ended up looking at my doctor and be like, okay, you're not going to tell me I can't wrestle? Well, grab popcorn and watch me. Yeah. Because I want to become a state champ, national champ, world champ. Yeah. And, but my parents were there the entire way, teaching me to, like, go above and beyond, right? And they taught me to disobey average. They taught me to, when your coach tells you to do 10 push-ups, that's cute, Ben, do more. And so I knew when the cadence was 10 push-ups, I would drop down and be like, I don't do silver, I do gold, 20, 30. Love it. Right? And how do we gain that confidence nowadays? Do more, outwork your opponent, and you will win the match, the fight, the war, whatever you want to win, way before you step on the mat. You know, it's crazy because there has, we've done events for decades, and people used to not even get out of bed for personal development. And now, since COVID and other things, I think you're right. I think building a life of more fulfillment is important, but I think it's the inner peace. It's that chatter going on in people's heads that they're dealing with. You talk about building confidence. It's because most people truly, even the most successful people I know, lack that confidence, or they struggle with it at least every day. And you had a story that you kind of told before that I think would give a good, because I know people are thinking, all right,
I know what I need to do. And sometimes maybe they think they got it hard. But you have a story about the grocery store, like the marketplace you had, that it was a little bit of a defining moment for you as you were growing up. And I think if you wouldn't mind telling that, it would help people to understand what you dealt with, how you changed your mindset perspective with the help of your mom. Can you give us that story?
100%. I had been made fun of by kids before. Kids say the darndest things. They're super honest. Anybody who has kids knows that. But being annihilated verbally by an adult was something different. I'd saved up all my money to pick out my favorite candy bar at the store, which was a Twix, and I was finally second in line. It was like rush hour traffic, and there was an adult in front of me with this little boy and his little girl that were about my age. And I grew up in not a huge town, so I thought I knew everyone. I didn't know these guys, and they didn't know me, and it was obvious because he would turn to his kids as he was getting ready to check out, see me, and then say, "Hey, kids, get over here." And as he would point to my face in front of everyone, and everyone would hear, he would say, "Come here, don't go near him and don't touch him because he's probably contagious." No wonder why he doesn't have any friends. Who would go out in public with a face like that? And he would go out to the car and hide his kids behind him like I was a monster. And I just broke. I'd never been so hungry for Twix and then not in a matter of a moment. And I just crunched and just crushed the Twix in my hand. I ran home and I went into the bathroom off my dad's office. And luckily my mom was home, because when I went in that bathroom, George, I tried to figure out a way to take my face off. I thought that the thing that I was born with was a curse. And when I went in there, I just melted against the wall. And I literally was thinking, what would it take to make me be normal? It would be the removing of my face. That's the only thing. This is what I was causing the attention. My mom breaks in. She hears me crying. She just cuddles with me. And in the moment when I needed her the most, she stood me up. After we cried together, I told her everything. She stood me up and she put me in front of the mirror. And she says, "Ben, you're different because you're born to make a difference." And then she says, "Everyone begs for attention. You're going to get it whether you like it or not. I'm going to tell you, when that attention comes, do not fit in, because you were born to stand out." And that's why the movie's called Standout. And that day I looked in the mirror, and that day I started to be grateful for the face staring back at me. And I learned a little bit more that day that Crouzon syndrome was not a curse, but it was a gift, and that I wasn't born to be everybody else's shadow in version 2.0. I was born to be me, Ben Kjar.
You know, I appreciate you telling that story. And one of the reasons why I love telling it and why I wanted to feature it sort of as we kind of got going here is because I think that although not even at that extreme, a lot of people are at like an emotional breaking point. You talk about inner peace. They're dealing with stuff and they feel like in their world it's everything. Like they're just never going to make it. They're not going to overcome these challenges. It might be whatever, like, you know, depression, anxiety, divorce, stress, relationships, whatever it is. And they get to an emotional breaking point, and there comes a time where, with the help of your mom, you were able to not only kind of reframe your mindset on that, but it sort of shaped your identity moving forward. And I think it's something we're going to get into as we talk about some of your strategies you train all over the world with right now. But there comes a point in time where you've got to identify and you decide, like, how are you going to deal with a situation? And I think people deal with situations, but they don't redefine their identity like you did. So when you think about it, you were able to do that. How much of it was your mom's influence, the upbringing you had, versus just a core decision? It was a little bit of everything, maybe? A
little bit of everything. It was also the moment. I think everyone is moved by pain and pleasure, and they just want to move. They just don't know how. And so sometimes people just don't have the right people in their corner. I was lucky enough to have the right people in my corner to get me to want to move and move in the right direction. Then you're born different, telling me truth, not just filling me full of BS. but you're here to make a difference. Let's shine, baby. Let's stand out. And then we went on to do that. And the world needs to know where to go, what to do, and who can help them get there, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we do.
And that's interesting because you're right. I think you're right. People that need to go in a direction, so they usually go in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the end of the day, I wanted to also mention this other thing, which is you chose wrestling. Of all sports, why did you choose wrestling? And how much has that influenced your mindset, identity, and everything like that? Because you couldn't have picked one-on-one, like, you know, like you couldn't have picked like a easier sport, like ping pong or something, like, I don't know. That's a big thing now, right? So why wrestling?
So I wanted to do football because I could hide my face behind a mask. And then the sport kind of outgrew me. And I started wrestling. You don't hide anything in wrestling.
Not at all, man. You're barely wearing anything.
And so, but wrestling allowed me to control something. And in life, all of us want to know that we can control something. Without being able to control Crouzon syndrome, it was something I just had zero control of. I needed something I can control. I love team sports. But the beautiful thing about an individual sport, which is also kind of tied around a team, like gymnastics and like wrestling's that way, swimming's like that way, right? You do your own relays, but you do your own thing. Wrestling is brilliant because it didn't matter if my quarterback had a bad day or was sick or just sucked at throwing the ball. If I was a receiver, which I wasn't catching anything.
Yeah, right.
When my coach told me to do 10 push-ups, I immediately had control of the result. Based on what? Effort, attitude, how I would show up that day. I would do 20. I would do 25. My coach said, okay, practice from 4 to 6. Cute, coach. Your practice is from 4 to 6. I'll see you at 3:30, and I'm leaving at 6:30, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So there was immediate things that I could use to control something.
Yeah.
And I could be perfect in that effort, in that attitude. And that's how I started shaping myself. And then I'm like, oh, my gosh, if I could control something, I'm going to be known. I'll never forget being in gym class one day, and I'm running around the track. Everyone's looking at me funny because I had to make weight that weekend for the world trials. My buddy's running next to me as we're running around the track, the whole class, by the way. And he's like, Ben, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to the world trials. I want to represent our country. He's like, why? I said, because I want to be known for something other than Crouzon syndrome. I want to be known for something other than the person who's diseased, contagious. Dude, I would have coaches from the other schools come to my coach and say, all right, so what are we going to do with that care kid? Do you want me to tell my guy to go easy on him? And my coach, my uncle, would be like, good luck, buddy.
Yeah. You might want to talk to the other kid.
Yeah, you might want to talk to the other kid. But when they would see me, that's what they would think.
Yeah.
And then that's when we would disobey average. We'd go after it. And, bro, I was stealing girlfriends one match at a time.
I love it. I love it.
Fun.
You know, it's there's so many lessons in that, too, because I think you just spoke recently on stage with Tony Robbins, and he invited you to do some things. And so I think, you know, he talks a lot sometimes about how we have a need for uncertainty in our life, but we have a need to have certainty. And so many people don't realize that you can create certainty in your life. You chose wrestling, not only to create some certainty, but create structure, discipline, even, you know, your identity and life around it. Went on to have, you know, massive, you know, championship level, international level, world championship level. And I think that that's amazing. I think people need to think about what can you do in your life to start to control the outcomes, or at least control what you let influence you in your life. And, you know, you have a lot of amazing training. You train all over the world now, but you have this topic that is called 3XSC.
Yeah.
And that's what I really wanted to focus on, so that people are like, look, man, if you're dealing with some things, what are some ways that you can really take it to the next level? And so, I mean, we could go so deep on all the stories and things that you've gone through, but would you share with us what the 3XSC is and why you've really chosen to double down on that topic to help people create change in business and in their life?
Yes. So many people known today, now more than ever, being able to go on ChatGPT and memorize it and regurgitate it. You have all these influencers that don't do, they just say.
Yeah.
And those drive me nuts. Here's the people that inspire me. And this is where my research came into play. I researched all the people that were the best in their game. I've researched businesses and organizations and athletes and prolific, like successful and significant people. And what did they all do? They all did 3 things. And I just took it into my life and copied them in my own way. They all did this. They all called their shot. So in high school, I did that. I called my shot on my letterman's jacket way before I did it. I wrote it. 3 XSC. What does it stand for? 3-time state champion. I did that as a sophomore.
Which is so far out there.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
you're talking like, I'm going to be state champion in a sport that I just, right.
And 3 times. And nobody had ever done it in my high school. And so people are like, what? This little Crouzon syndrome kid is going to be able to do that? I'm like, I ain't just going to do it. I'm going to break the records doing it. And so I called out my shot. Call your shot. 3 XSC. I put on my letterman's jacket. You wear your letterman's jacket every day. At least you did in my school. Everyone knew what it meant. They're like, bro, you're gutsy. I'm like, well, I'm going after my dreams. Number 2, I enlisted people that would hold me accountable, and I got them in my corner. I call these my shot callers, the people that help me call my shot. Those are the people who are able to get in the trenches with me. Not just the people that sit in the side, have popcorn, and say, "Oh, Ben." They're the ones that are like, "Let's go."
Yeah, ride or die. These are going.
You.
Yep.
You need me to. What do you need? You need supplements. What do you need? I'm here for you. I'm willing to bleed for you. Right? Those are the shot callers in your corner that help you get there. So that guess what? When you have a bad day, because we all have bad days.
Yes.
They're the ones that are by me. They're like, "Bro, I saw you do 10 push-ups when coach told us to do 10. That ain't you, bro. Are you going to do 3 XSC or not?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, You're right. I played small today. And then I'm hitting 30 next time. And then lastly, and it's so important, we forget this. You have to put a date down to accomplish a goal that expires. I call it a shot clock. We all know in basketball, you got 24 seconds.
Right.
If you didn't,
It's
people would
ticking
dribble
down.
the ball
Yep.
for 5 minutes. So as you call your shot, 3 XSC, as you get shot callers in your corner, your coaches, your teams, your mentors, your friends, whatever it is, and you put a date down, you buy the ticket. If you're going to run the marathon, you know it's on July 15th, buy it February 15th. Know it's going to come, whether you prepare yourself or not, whether you're sick or not. Guess what? That date's arriving. As we do those 3 things, I've seen people accomplish their goals 95% of the time. It's shattered companies' records, and it's just an honor to see people achieve their dreams.
Yeah, it's crazy the simplicity, but the timeless principles of success that are out there. And I see that now where you say that these 3 things, when they're embedded in timeless principles that you've studied and seen all over. But you've applied them to your life. That's kind of very unique as well. And so tell once again, give us the 3 things that you take people through. What are those 3 things that make up the 3 XSC?
They call their shot. They make their goals super clear. They get people in their corner to hold them accountable. They get shot callers. And lastly, they set a timeline that expires. I call it a shot clock.
Yeah.
Those 3 things are changing people's ability to achieve goals.
I love it. I love it. Let's break that apart for just a second, because I wanted to kind of ask you this. How do you overcome the fear? Let's take these 3 things. How do you overcome the fear to jump out there and call your shot? Because that was a bit of an extreme. Like, you're talking 3-time world, like that far in advance. You got people, and then you displayed it on your Letterman jacket, before you actually had the ability to display it. So you had to overcome the fear to do that. You put it out there. You stayed consistent. You made sure the world knew you were going to do it. How do people do that and push through all this fear? Because it's not as simple as just calling your shot. That sounds like a simple deal, right?
Totally. Well, we already do it. Like, all of us are willing to fail. All of us are willing to fail until someone is watching. That's the crazy thing. All of us sing in the shower. Dude, you and I both know we've been at the stop sign and we turn over and the person next to us in their car is jamming to Shania Twain.
Yeah.
And it's a 350-pound dude.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And then he sees
until you look,
and he's like,
and then he's done. Yeah,
and then he's not. But here's the thing. The moment we realize that fear really isn't that fearful, we stop letting it be undefeated. What do I mean by that? The moment we realize that fear is not the worst thing. Failing is not the worst thing, because I've done it, dude. I've called my shot, and I've not achieved it. It just happened in the last couple of years. I went to the World Championships. My kids are there in my corner. I wrote world champion everywhere. And then I took second, and I was ahead, and I lost. I went back to my hotel. I didn't want to go because I thought my kids would absolutely think their dad was a failure. And I took forever. And when I showed up, my kids were wearing my silver medal at the Worlds, and they were running around the hotel yelling champion of the world because they saw their dad step up and actually get on the stage. That's what people want to see.
Yeah.
People will stand up and applaud even when you lose when they see you put max effort. That's all they want. That's all we want.
Yeah.
There's been studies that have shown people on their deathbed not say, I'm so glad I didn't do that. There's what they say. I regret that I didn't try to do that.
See, I think you're right. I think at the end of the day, people that call their shots normally in life now, they're afraid of what people are going to think, and they're afraid of failing. And at the end of the day, if you stop thinking that that's what you're doing it for, if you're doing it to impress other people, you'll be afraid of what they think.
Yeah.
If you're doing it just for the result, then you're going to be really disappointed. But if you're doing it for the other reason, to grow and discipline and, by the way, build your confidence, then all those things won't matter as much, you know. But I think that's huge. The second thing you talk about is your shot callers. How many times do you get this when you're talking to people? I feel like we have shot callers in our court, right? Because they're the people that'll tell you what you want to hear, when you want to hear it, when things are going good, when you're helping them, when you're doing things. You're talking about a whole nother level. These are people that you can lean on when you are struggling. These are people that will go out of their way for you, not just do it. How often are people just following the crowd and thinking that's their cheerleaders, and that's not what you're talking about, right?
Nope. And I'll tell you the difference. I'll be very clear. The shot callers that we want are the ones, let me give you an example. I ran a half marathon. Not bored. I wasn't born to be a runner, I don't think. Short legs. I only ran when I did like weight loss and wrestling. Yeah. But I called my shot. And I called my cousin, who actually gets paid to be the pacer for all these half marathons. And I said, yo, JC, here's what I'm doing. I'm calling my shot, and you're one of my shot callers. Now, a normal person would be like, great, awesome, dude. I'll be there to cheer you at the finish line. 2 days later, in the mail, at my house, I get a package from JC Smoot. I open up the package, and it's brand new running shoes because he knew I didn't have them.
Wow.
Paid for by him. Next thing you know, I get all these supplements. He's like, Ben, get this app, Run with Hal. Start following it. My wife was going to do it with me. She like busted her ankle up. She didn't. So guess what she did do? She hobbled to the aid stations because she knew my favorite Gatorade was the purple Gatorade, and she knew all they had was water. So guess what she was doing?
Oh, wow.
Here with the purple Gatorade to hand to me as I ran by, because she knew that's what I wanted. And
how critical is that to you to keep going, right? Because it's not cheering, it's commitment to be your shot caller, right? Yeah.
They're in the foxhole with me.
Yeah, that's true.
It's those people that are, I call it the let's go theory. There's like, go Ben, go Ben. And then there's the let's go theory.
Yeah, with you.
They're saying let's go.
Yeah.
During the race, I followed JC because I said I was going to do it. He said, Ben, I'll be the pacer. He called him up. He's like, can I do this time? The one I was chasing after. It's the people that are willing to get in the trench with you and say, yo, that's what you're going to do? I'm there for it. Let's go.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people that are like, well, I don't have somebody like that. You know what's interesting? The minute you call your shot, that's when you find a lot of those people, huh?
And some of them aren't your quote-unquote friends.
Yeah.
But people will come out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
And then those will be the people that they'll bleed with you.
Yeah, and even if you do all that, if you don't have a shot clock, if you don't have a deadline, if you don't have a date, like we all know the line there as far as, you know, trying to set goals without a date. Yeah. Let me ask you this. You said something earlier on that I think is a phrase that a lot of people have adopted, which is this idea of disobey average. And, what disobeying average? Most people right now, because of reality TV and movements and politics, they're all like, I'm going to buck the trends. What does that mean to you, disobey average? How do you define that? And how do you tell people to live their life in order to emulate that?
Yeah. The majority of my life, George, I just prayed. I prayed to God, literally. I prayed to God every morning. I'm like, if I could just look average tomorrow, normal, please, I'll do anything. Literally, take this curse away from me. And then I learned that Crouzon syndrome was a gift. And then I actually decided, and I realized that my pet peeve was to be normal. I didn't want to fit in. I wanted to stand out. I didn't want to be average. So everything I didn't want to be in life was just average. You never want everyone to come to your funeral and be like, Ben was a good man. He was a good average individual. Come on, kill me now. And so how do you disobey average? We're always told to obey, stand in line, obey.
Right.
So I went against that, and I said disobey average. So every time we're told to do something, just like I was in high school, never do what's asked, ever. Because then you're just in line. I learned in competition that, okay, if everyone's shooting for the gold medal, everyone gets on or is shooting for the podium at the end of the tournament, why in the world would I do what my coaches tell me to do if I'm trying to be a gold medalist?
Right.
You got to do more. And here's the shocking thing that I learned, because I adopted 3 kids really quick, 13 months.
Yep.
And I became a dad really, really fast. And a rude awakening happened. My kids saw my default way of living. And many of my things in life was average. And so immediately I saw them doing the things that I did, and they were doing average things. Here's the thing that just tore me up. When I realized as an adult that our average standard of living, our default way of living, is our kids' often highest potential, because that's what they see.
Yeah.
Fitness, with family, with faith, with finances, with fun, fulfillment. That's what I live by. I changed. I said, you know what? The Kjars aren't born to be average. So I started changing the way I lived, and that in turn changed my kids' way of living. As we choose, as adults, as parents, as mom and dads, to disobey average, to call our shot, to dream again. Because Ed Milet said one of the most insidious forms of child neglect is parents not living their dreams and achieving their potential. You are literally causing child neglect. What I hear is child abuse when we don't teach our kids how to dream. How do we teach them best? We show them. Mm-hmm. When we show them how to dream, because we're calling our shot and we're disobeying average, they can follow suit.
Yeah, I love the way you think about that, because I feel like a lot of people adopt battle cries like, push, grind, hustle, do extra, in the gym or this or that. But you've really adopted it as a life mantra, meaning you're right. I think a lot of even high impact entrepreneurs, founders, business owners, they excel in huge areas in their business and they go further than most need when it's on path to their goal. But the rest of their life is average or below average. And what you're saying is that, your whole life, really, disobey average is a mantra for your whole life. Because if you settle for average in most of your life, except for one core area, it averages out to be average. Let's not kid each other, right?
Or less than average.
Or less than average, right? So that's one of the problems I think a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders in general have, is they really push themselves in one area, but then they settle for average everywhere else. And it's almost like I got to balance that out. And so I love how you look at it, because I do feel like how you approach life, it's not just a battle cry. It's got to be like a mantra for your life, right? So I really like that. What do you do right now in the last few minutes here? What do you do as daily rituals? What do you do for daily discipline? How do you keep yourself consistent especially once you've accomplished so many of your goals? And a lot of leaders and business owners and stuff have that happen. They're crushing it. How do you stay consistent and keep pushing to the next level? What do you do?
I black out times. For an example, before 10 a.m. every day are my meetings. People don't know what my meetings are, but they're my family meetings. This is my family business. What does that mean for me? Me and my wife decided, because we have a lot of stress in our lives by the way we run stuff, and I have 3 kids that are 6, 7, and 7. They're a lot right now, right? And so we needed time to get up and start our day out right. And that's with fitness, that's with emotional therapy, which is how we approach our day with things that we tell ourselves. And then it's the ability to start the day off right. And our kids see it every single day. Your morning routine, Tony Robbins talks about it.
Yeah.
Your morning routine and how you show up is everything. So how do you do it? I don't book anything before 10 a.m. That's my sacred time.
Well, and you prioritize the most important things, right? I think a lot of times people feel like what they're treating as a priority is not themselves first, and that's important. Themselves, them family, the most important. It's like with Franklin Planner, we talk about what matters most, and so I love that, and you're consistent with that, and that's really protecting your shot callers too, huh? Like this is you and your mindset and your family. I love that. That's a good lesson for a lot of people to learn. There's a phrase which is you'll never live the best life trying to be somebody else's 2.0.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
Listen, I don't care how much money you have. I don't care what you've achieved. If you've never realized that you are the best gift, God created you on purpose, with purpose, and that you are meant to shine you and not Bobby or Tommy or Billy version 2.0. We've all been there. We've all been there.
Yeah.
If I could just be them, if I just did that, if I just lived there or had that, life would be better. Until you realize that you can be truly fulfilled in who you are. And the things that you're going through, the addiction, the divorce, the death, or whatever, or the disease, that actually can be a gift. And you can actually inspire others by what you've been through. And you're not pretending to be somebody else's, because I've tried it. You'll never be able to be fulfilled in trying to be somebody else's version 2.0.
Right.
Ever. And until they realize that they're born exactly the way that they're meant to be, that's when life gets fun.
I love it. Yeah, I used to, when I had Les Brown speaking for me, he used to say, you have greatness inside of you. You just got to see it. And I like your perspective, because if there was one overall message I'd like our listeners to take from you is, that your adversity, it's not a liability. And not only is it not a bad thing, it's your leverage. It literally is your leverage, right? You took what could have been like, I can deal with this and I can do better in life, but you literally made it your superpower to do everything you're doing. It's why you chose wrestling. It's why you went world champion. It's like why you're now one of the most influential out there, like, speaking and creating impact. And I don't think a lot of times you have to know where you're going. Like I was just talking about on our Monday podcast, that clarity comes from execution. But most people are trying to look around for clarity so they can start executing. It's going to come later. But I love the message you have, because if you can look at your adversity as leverage rather than, some kind of liability, that's a huge step. And I appreciate you sharing that message with us. What else? Is there anything before we take off you'd like to share? Any final message or thoughts that you have?
Yeah, a lot of people are asking, hey, Ben, yeah, you did all this when you were in high school, whatever. What are you doing now? Well, you just mentioned that I spoke on stage with Tony Robbins. That was a shot that I called 20 years ago. I was in college, and there was a course that the curriculum was taught by Tony Robbins, and I learned that through learning it. And he taught me my I am statements. He taught me the incantations. Now I am the voice, I will lead, not follow, I will believe, not doubt. He taught me these things. So when I would look in the mirror, I did believe. I did defy the odds. He taught me how to step up. I learned these things. 20 years ago, I said, I will speak on stage with Tony Robbins. I didn't take that class once. I took it 4 years in a row.
Wow.
Over
Wow.
again.
Wow.
It
Wow.
impacted me that much. 20 years later, I was able to speak on stage with Tony and fulfill that calling. Every single day we have the opportunity to call our shot, every single day. And sometimes they happen quicker than others. And sometimes it's just as special if it happens 20 years later.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, no, that is so true too. And there's probably still things going. So I like that you said that, because no matter where you're at in your life, whether you're struggling, whether you're dealing with issues, adversity, maybe, ironically, maybe you're crushing it, and maybe you're a little satisfied, but these principles of calling your shot, getting your shot callers, setting deadlines with a shot clock, I think they're timeless. And like you said, sometimes they come back around. And I know you have some big things coming out now that the movie's out and everything else. Things you wouldn't have even thought of calling, but now they're pushing you to the next level. That's another thing about having the right shot callers. They continue to push you past, right? Well, thank you for being here. And listen, if you're listening to this episode, the goal was to inspire and motivate you, yes, with Ben's story, but also to share some tangible strategies and tactics you can use to level up. Because it's never too late to start living the life that you're meant to live, but you've got to take action. You've got to set yourself up for success, and you've got to begin to control your environment and what you're doing. And so I appreciate you listening. Share this episode, share the show, and hit us up on the Daily Mastermind on Facebook, Instagram, pretty much anywhere, and let us know what you're doing, both what you're struggling with, but also what you're winning at. Let's celebrate some wins, and I look forward to talking with you more tomorrow. Once again, it's George Wright here with Ben Kjar. Talk to you soon.